Hi everybody, it's Becky with Icing on Top Becky's Cakes, and today we're gonna make homemade lollipops. These were so fun to make. And not only are we gonna make the homemade lollipops, but I'll show you how to make a homemade lollipop sculpture, which if you're not in the mood to do a whole sculpture, you can just do the homemade lollipops. And I also show you how to pour it like I do with these bigger pieces here, or we're gonna pull it with these rainbow ones here, and even how to do a lollipop butterfly. That guy was a lot of fun. And there's a little girl blowing bubble gum. Like I said, if you just want to stay tuned for the lollipop part, homemade lollipops are awesome. And if you haven't already seen the recipe tutorial, I'm gonna put it in the details down below, and I'm also gonna send a link to it, or you can check the cards. I'll put a link there to the pulled sugar recipe. That's what I'm using for this today. And that's the one that I'll put in the link, because I've already done that tutorial. I don't want to bore you guys by doing it all over again. And I also want to say a little disclaimer about this video. I may or may not have set something on fire in this. I was not injured during this, but I'm going to use that as a precaution, caution for you guys, that everything that we're doing is very hot. We're pouring hot sugar. So just use caution. I use double gloves. Right now I don't have the double gloves on because I'm not using anything hot. So double gloves, I use a cotton and then this over the top. Yeah, double gloves are great when working and pulling sugar because you're pouring that hot sugar. And yeah, the double gloves make it so much easier. I'm also using a torch. You don't need to use the torch if you're just doing the lollipops. I use the torch for the sculpture, but if you use the torch cautiously, then there should be no problem. But anyway, I'm very excited to start with our lollipops, so let's begin.
Okay, so we just finished cooking all our sugar and it is super duper hot. So I put it in a little silicone dish and I'm gonna carefully pour it into this little silicone mold. Now this is a little fairy mold, but I'm going to take the wings off of her this time and use her as a little girl. But I'm just going to pour it completely and I can remove the wings later. So anytime you use any kind of mold, once you get it in there, you just pat it like that. And that gets all the bubbles out. I'm adding flavoring to the rest of this because I want it to taste like bubblegum. But whatever candy flavoring you use, just add a few drops and stir it around. You can see the steam here kinda is still super hot sugar, and we want it to be super hot. I added a couple drops of pink gel food coloring. I'm gonna mix that in really good. And I usually wait 5 minutes after cooking my sugar before adding the pink gel food coloring, or any gel food coloring. Otherwise it will get all splotchy because it burns and it's too hot for the gel. So you have to wait just 5 minutes, let it cool down a little, and then pour. And it's very temperamental, this part, because you want to make sure that you're pouring while it's still liquid like this, but yet not too hot that it's gonna cause the gel to burn. So yeah, 5 minutes, mix the gel, and then pour. I'm going to pour the rest of this out, and as you can see, this is starting to firm up some. So you want to move quickly because this is time sensitive. And once we get on the mat, I'm going to add my gel food coloring to this because I wanted purple and yellow here. And I already have my pink that we had mixed in the bowl. So since I'm pouring this out, you can also mix it right like this. And I'm going to fold it over so I do not get the gel on my gloves, and then spread it to the other part of it. Pouring the rest of my pink out too because I don't want it to harden in my silicone dish, because like I said, it's time sensitive and you want to do the pulling process right now. I'm folding it over onto the gel food coloring. I'm going to cut this in half so that I don't mix the colors, and then I'm going to pull this, and as I pull it, it'll mix the colors in for me. Now the pulling process is basically just pulling it back and forth like this. And what that does is it adds shine, and it evens out the temperature of the sugar so that it's all the same temperature. So when you're working with it, it stays the same temperature. So we always pull it before we cut it and start molding it together. And that also makes it more manageable. Now I put it back there under my hot lamp. So yes, I have the heat lamp set up in the corner, so after I'm done pulling, I want it underneath that lamp. Otherwise it'll get hardened and then I can't work with it. And if you run into the trouble that it's gotten too hard, you can pop it in the microwave for like 10 to 30 seconds to get it softened up and then pull it again. So, but you don't want to do that too many times because then the sugar can start to crystallize. So now I'm getting a little section from each, and I'll put those back under the heat lamp that I'm not using right now. And so I can work with these 3 pieces. And as you can see, I rolled them out into rods and I'm gonna press them together. And once I get them pressed together, I'm just gonna pull it out long. And then really, this is awesome because you can make whatever you want. So you might have seen in past tutorials that I have done with sugar tutorials, there are so many different things. You can even start blowing sugar and stuff like the sugar swamp. So but today we're just doing the basic pulling, making a lollipop, and then I'll show you a little bit of advanced stuff with the sugar sculpture. But once you get this pulling down, it's just a lot of fun. And here I am, I'm just twisting it so the colors kind of twist together here. So there we go, this one's twisted, and then I'm just gonna spin that around like a little pinwheel. And what I have is some little lollipop sticks on hand, and I am just gonna stick those in while it's still soft, and then the stick will stay with the hard sugar once it hardens. So yeah, so this one we did twisty, and then I'm gonna do another one that is just kind of straight lines, and then do the pinwheel because I want to see those colors straight and not kind of smudged together like the twistiness would do. So I'm just gonna pull this one out and spin it around. Now, as you can see in the upper right hand corner over there, I have a name spelled out. So you can do all kinds of fun things, like I said. However you turn and mold these, whether they're into round lollipops or into letters for a name or anything. That's why I love working with sugar. It's you get to mold it however you want, and if you're messing up, you can put it in the microwave for a little while and then try to rework it. But obviously once you have the colors already blended together, you're not going to be able to melt it and rework it. That's why I keep the colors separate when I'm not using it. And we always keep our scissors on hand just to cut the sugar whenever we need to. As long as the sugar is soft, you can cut it. If it starts to get hard, it will shatter when you try to cut it with the scissors. So always try to work a little fast with warm sugar. And that's what the heat lamp is for. So the pieces that you're not working with, you can keep back there, let them stay soft, and then pull them out as you need to work with them. Because yeah, when sugar gets hard, it can shatter, and unfortunately I've shattered a few lovely rose lollipops and stuff like that before, and it's sad. So yeah, beware of the shattering of sugar. Now this one I'm just gonna spin right around my stick and make it into one of those long lollipops, and that'll just give us a different look for this lollipop here. And then we'll just kind of rub it back and forth so it stays together on the stick, and we'll set this one aside. Okay, now we get to do the fun little butterfly. So let's take a piece of purple. We'll just cut the size that we want for the middle of him, and just kind of roll that out to shape the center of our butterfly. Now for the wings, I'm going to use some pink. As you can see, I'm reaching over there under my heat lamp where my pink is. I'm just going to pull some out. Now it's soft enough that I can just pull it out and mold it into the shape of the wing that I want, and then cut it with my scissors. Again, while it's still warm, otherwise it'll shatter. And since it's still warm, I can just press that purple center of my butterfly right into it, and it'll stay. Now if your wings harden before you finish and you're not able to stick it because they're hardened, you can apply a little bit of the torch to it at that point, and you have to do it very lightly, otherwise you'll melt through your wing. But if you just do a little light touch of that torch, you'll be able to stick it. And now we're gonna do some yellow for the antenna here. And I'm just gonna slice that off, and we're gonna glue those little pieces of the antenna to the top of the butterfly. by using our torch. What we're going to do is we're going to lightly heat the ends, and that just gets the sugar just wet enough that it'll act as our glue. And here's the oopsie part, right? There's a little bit of fuel on my hand. Ugh. Yeah, not good. Ah, drop it.
Oops, there it was. I set myself on fire. And I'm laughing about it now because I was not actually injured. I managed to smack my hand down on the counter to put out that little flame right away. I did char the gloves, and then the next scene you can see I've got new gloves on because I removed the charred ones. But let that be a precaution to you. When how it even happened, that was the first time this has ever happened, is because my torch, I had just recently refilled it with fuel, and then I wiped it down, but I must have not wiped it down good enough, because then when I touched it with my glove, I must have got just a little bit of fuel on my glove. Because you can tell with this hand, when I was lighting the little part of the butterfly, obviously nothing was flaming up, but this hand obviously had gotten some fuel on it. So as soon as I got close to that torch, it went. And so use caution if you've just filled your torch. Clean it really, really carefully, then just put on a new pair of gloves. And then it shouldn't happen. You shouldn't have fuel on your hands. But that is the first time that has happened. And like I said, you know, you gotta use caution anytime you work with anything hot or anything with a flame. And so there's my disclaimer, but let's watch it in slow motion now, because that was kind of fun. As long as I didn't get hurt, it was fun to watch.
And here we go, in and whoosh, the flames. There I go, smacking my hand. Drop that thing like a hot potato. Okay, now we're going to actually do this again properly and actually put the poor butterfly's antenna on. Yeah, get that on there. We'll stick that butterfly. You were more trouble than you're worth sometimes. Okay, now for the bubblegum piece for the little girl, I'm taking a piece of that pink and I'm pulling it out real thin and pressing it down over my pinky finger, because that was about the size that I needed this bubblegum blowing to go. So I'm going to press it down over my pinky finger, and then I'm going to squeeze in the end so that it's more narrow than that part, so it looks like she's blowing the bubblegum right from her mouth. So I'm going to squeeze that together while it's still warm, otherwise it'll just shatter. So once we get it squeezed together, then we're just going to cut off the end, and then that's what we're going to use for her. Now anytime, yeah, that was getting a little hot, but I mean a little hard there, but we still managed to cut it in time. I'm going to heat this with the blowtorch, and this is where I'm going to stick the name. And so we're just going to heat for each section, and then we can easily put the letter down, and the letter will stick to it because it's hot sugar. So that's what I love about sugar. You can stick it anywhere to itself, and it works out great because you can stick any design on and really come up with so many cool, interesting things. I'm going to remove the figure from the silicone, and what you want to do is you want to slowly pull away the edges and work it out, and then press it out from the back side, and that way you make sure you don't break any of the pieces as you get it out. Next, I'm going to want to remove those wings since I'm not working with a fairy for this sculpture, but I need a little girl, so we're just going to heat these. And then I'm going to be able to snip it with my scissors once it's hot enough. But we're going to do it very carefully so that I don't ruin the rest of the sculpture by melting it. But if you wanted to see this as a full-on fairy, I actually have her in my spring fairy sculpture. So that was a fun one, and you can check that one out on my channel if you want. Just going to heat the tip of that bubblegum carefully and stick it to the little girl's mouth so that she is blowing bubblegum. Isn't she so cute? I just love her. I had fun with that. Now we're going to heat our base. We're going to heat this a little hotter because I want to be able to make sure that this is not going to fall over when I put the main frame on it. And so we're also going to put our little bubblegum blowing girl, and then we're going to put our frame on, and we're going to have to hold that there until they harden. So I usually have a fan nearby, and I just let the fan do my cooling for me. Once that's hardened in place, we're going to lightly heat the back of the butterfly, being careful not to melt the wings, and then that'll make him able to stick to there. So I kind of gave both this and the frame just a little bit of heat so it works together to stick, and then I hold it in place until it hardens using my little portable fan. And then I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to stick it to the back of the frame here. Oops, sorry, blocking the video here. There we go. And I'll stick that in place. Have a little lollipop popping up and some little ones down here. So just heat those lightly and stick them in place. And there we go. All right, that was so much fun, you guys. Thank you for joining me. If you want to check out any more of these sugar sculptures and stuff, I have a lot on my channel, and learn about blowing sugar too, because that's a lot of fun. And please subscribe to my channel.